So I'm here with Brett Clark, the coach of the Australian men's team, shaping up for the Commonwealth Games in April this year. So Brett, a great display tonight by the Australian men, starting off with Heming Hu playing against Sung Jiao Wong from China. So what do you think of his match?
I thought it was a really good match. Heming played well, but Sung played a lot better. I think Sung's a world-class player, probably capable of beating players in the top 60, 80 in the world sort of thing. He was a bit faster than Heming. He served better. Backhand was faster and stronger, and he didn't miss a forehand. So, I mean, Heming got close and really had chances. So I was pretty impressed with Heming's play. Heming's been playing unbelievably well lately. He had a great World Cup where he took a set off Dmitry Ovtcharov and was up 1-love and 8-6 against Lee Sung-soo. Yeah, so he's having a really good year and played incredibly well at the qualifying. So yeah, I mean tonight he was outclassed slightly, but he played well.
Yeah. So what do you see the big difference between those two players? So I mean Heming, looks fantastic in the open rally. What's the real difference?
Yeah, I think Sung's a bit faster and a bit spinnier. Okay, so he's serving with more spin. His forehand's a little bit faster. His backhand kicks. Heming's maybe a bit more consistent, but if Sung's on his game, Heming's going to struggle to keep up with that fast spin and speed kicking at him. Like the ball's coming up near his chest, and Heming felt uncomfortable. He felt a little bit behind the plate.
Yeah, great. So on to our second match, and it was a match-up between Chris Yan and Wong Ray. So Wong Ray has played a little bit in the US as well.
Wong Ray played in the US and coached at ICC, so he had a rating of 2650 or so in the US, which is extremely high, and so he's obviously an experienced player with international experience. I thought in the match with Chris, I thought Chris was slightly disappointing, like at the start he looked good and he looked like he was going to keep up, and then Wong Ray just played more consistently and Chris sort of fell off the pace, couldn't put as many balls on the table as you need to against Wong Ray. So, I mean, I think if they played 10 times, Chris would have a chance of winning near half, but tonight he wasn't at his best and he was, he just wasn't as consistent as Wong Ray.
Yeah, so I mean, Chris looks really smooth when he's playing. But Wong Ray just seemed to break him down a little bit tonight.
Yeah, sure. Chris looks smooth when he's playing, but when the ball keeps coming back at a really consistent sort of frequency, I mean, it made Chris fall behind the play a little bit, and then that smoothness sort of looked like he was, behind and maybe not giving his best, which is not true because he's always trying his hardest. But he has a relaxed style, and when he's not playing at his best, it looks a little bit like he's sort of, not trying, but it's not true.
Yeah, and I mean, so Chris, working full time, Wong Ray trains full time. Is that a real factor?
It's the reality of Australian table tennis that the players aren't professional and they have a job or they're studying and so on. So, this has been going on for like the last 40 years, that countries are professional and Australia's got people studying and working. So it's not really an excuse. It's a factor though. I mean, if Chris was practicing twice a day like Wong Ray, his consistency levels would go up and, maybe he's a better player, but we'll never know because the reality is he's going to work.
Yeah, absolutely. So then I suppose a little bit of a turnaround in the Australian men's team, and we saw Trent Carter come up against Yang Yang, the young guy, 16 years old perhaps, and so Trent played him last week in the first Test series and went down 3-2.
Yep. So last week he lost to him, and I think today he played better. He sort of stuck to the tactics that he had. He was getting in with some really heavy spin into Yang Yang's middle. He was trying to do that last week. Maybe he tensed up a little bit, couldn't sort of execute at every point. But today he received better as well. Trent received better and just put him under more pressure. Slid some backhands with the pimples into his backhand, and just had him under that little bit of pressure. And because he's a young guy, in the last set he folded a little bit. So last week Trent got off to an incredibly bad start, served and fault, and got down 5-love in the fifth. This week Trent sort of was close enough to put him under pressure at the end of the game and got a win.
Yeah, so and Trent to me looked like he used that pimples really well. But the big thing that I think that I saw tonight was just the slower ball troubling the Chinese players. They look incredible off the fast ball tonight. Just Trent seemed to slide a few balls with the pimples, as you said, and just the slower spin.
So the Chinese, they like playing fast, and they don't, just in general, Chinese don't like slow spinny topspin. It's just something they don't practice against. It's something that not many of their players actually do. Now, if you talk about the national team like Ma Long and that, yeah, they're training against it and they can deal with it. But the sort of province level players, you know, your 2600 to 2700 players, they look fantastic against fastballs. But give them a slow, heavy topspin, especially if it's low, suddenly they haven't practiced against that. They're not familiar with that. You know, they don't play a lot of Europeans who tend to spin the ball a bit more. Yeah, and they fall apart, especially at close scores. They tend to sort of wonder what to do, and then they mishit it, or they swing and don't make the shots. So yeah, Australian players can spin the ball, and that will trouble a province team. It won't trouble a national player from China, because they're good and they're playing internationally every week. But these guys aren't playing internationally every week, and yeah, that's going to trouble them every time. Like, that was one of the tactics tonight: spin the ball more to them, make them miss.
Mm-hmm. You commented during the week with the training as well. Just even sometimes the side spin ball was troubling them.
Yeah. Again, they play straight up and down. They don't do a lot of hooking and a lot of fading and so on. They practice a little bit robotically, and they hit the ball very straight, and they hit it fantastic. But when the ball does come in sideways, they're more sort of not as familiar with that, and they'll make mistakes. Especially under pressure.
Yeah, great. And to the final match of the night, and Hemming Hugh coming out again, and this time playing against Wong Ray. And you know, as you said earlier, you know, Wong Ray, a 26-35 player in the US, and high quality, and Hemming getting up 3-1. What did you see tonight?
Hemming played really well. Wong Ray has an exceptional backhand banana flick. He can do it from anywhere on the table, and after a while, Hemming realised if he put some of those on, he'd be able to get around and play a forehand after it. So he needed to rally more with him and not panic at the start of the point. And I think he ended up, I mean, I'd have to watch the match again, but I think he ended up sort of out-rallying him in the end, and, you know, winning on the third, fourth, fifth ball of the rally rather than the serve and service return. And Hemming's stronger than Wong Ray in a way. Like, when the rally goes, you know, past 3 or 4 hits, Hemming's got that strength. Wong Ray's a little bit tight in the rallies. Wong Ray's fantastic over the table at the start of the point, but once the rally extends, he sort of loses some of his, he doesn't have a lot of power at the end of the day. He's more a consistent player.
Yeah, so Wong Ray, as you said at the start of the rally, looked really good. So, you know, Hemming's little tomahawk serve, and Wong Ray looked like he was really getting on top of that in the middle stages.
Yeah. Well, Wong Ray can play a backhand flick off basically any short serve, which is really scary because you have to deal with it. But if you can play it deep back into his backhand, especially when he's moved over to his forehand, then he struggles to get back there and play anything significant. So then you get a chance to counter-attack. But yeah, his backhand return is world class, no doubt about it. But some of the other parts of his game aren't really world class. His backhand topspin's perhaps world class. His forehand and in the middle, especially in here, it's a little bit awkward in the middle. So yeah, I mean, that was exposed just slightly.
Yeah, great. So overall, so the Chinese players have been here just over a week. So what do you think the main take out of this week's been for the Australian team?
Well, probably close to a month, a bit less maybe, outside before the Commonwealth Games. I think just getting to practice twice a day with guys who practice for a living is a good thing. You know, it sort of builds a foundation to getting some really good training in before the games, and just sort of now we can sort of taper off a little bit, play a little bit less, and hopefully we'll be playing well by the time the Commonwealth Games come around.
Mm-hmm. And just finally, Brett, so some predictions or expectations of your team for the Commonwealth Games?
I'll talk about the men's team mainly because that's the team I'm coaching. I think they'll be competitive. You know, whether they can medal or not, that's impossible to say. But I think they'll be competitive and they'll fight for, you know, every ball for the event. So anything can happen. I do think they'll be keen to do well. I think they're hungry. So let's see what happens.
Great. So thanks to Brett Clark, the Australian men's team coach for the Commonwealth Games starting up at the Gold Coast on April the 4th with the opening ceremony and first matches kicking off on April the 5th. Thanks, Brett.
Thank you.